Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gareth, Westie runner, screwing races up one at a time, so you don't have to. Anyway, we're a week after Tarawera. I hope you're all recovering really well, and that's kind of the topic of our day, recovery. You were out there for probably quite a long time and you're challenging yourself mentally and physically, having a great day out on the trails. But at the same time, there are physiological effects from that may last a few days or even a few weeks after the race. So, we're going to talk a bit about that kind of recovery. So the first is gastrointestinal. It's not unusual for people to experience gastrointestinal distress during the race itself, but sometimes some of these symptoms can persist for a little bit of time after the race. You were out there for a long time. You were probably eating foods and drinking things that you don't normally drink an awful lot. You may have been a bit dehydrated. And so your natural rhythm of your body may take a little bit of time to get back to normal. So in order to help that along, make sure you stay hydrated. Eat the kinds of foods you would normally eat. The other thing that I find quite often to help me along with that is kimchi and other fermented foods. So it's really easy to put a dollop of kimchi or a tablespoon of sauerkraut on the side of your plate at mealtimes and just have that, because the bacteria in those, because of the fermentation process, will really help your personal bacteria in your gut kind of get back to normal and make everything a bit nice and regular and normal again, which is a real positive thing. The other is sleep disturbance. You potentially might have had a very, very early morning, a very late night. If you use caffeine during the race, that might not help either. And so it's pretty common for people to experience sleep disturbance in the days and weeks after a really big endurance event. So again, practice good sleep hygiene. Try and get back into a rhythm of getting up at a sensible time in the morning, going to bed at a sensible time of night. Avoid caffeine in the afternoon, not too much screen time before bedtime. The other thing is maybe you want to back off on the alcohol a little bit and be careful. It's great to have a beer or two after the race, but if you keep doing that, alcohol is a really big sleep depressant, and so you won't kind of get back into your natural rhythm and recover as much as you might otherwise. The final thing to talk about, I guess, is some people will experience slight disturbance to their menstrual cycle. There's a paper that was written in 1987 by Van Gent and Tim Noakes in South Africa, and they talk about the 70 female ultra runners who weren't on hormonal contraception that they followed, and at the most intense time of training and racing, about 41% of them experienced some low-level temporary disturbance to their period. Now, the important thing to note is minor and temporary, because we're not talking about amenorrhea or lack of a period, or dysmenorrhea, very, very disordered periods. We're talking about a minor disturbance. So if this happens to you, that's entirely normal. If it's not minor, or if you have other concerns about it, go seek help from a medical professional, someone you feel comfortable with who can work through these issues with you and work out whether maybe there's a different underlying problem. Getting back into running is probably not a bad idea, but you don't want to rush things. So on the Facebook page, I saw someone say that they were going to go and do a 20-kilometre recovery run. I've got to say, 3 days after 102k, that seems like a lot to me. Now, I can't judge it for this person because it may be entirely appropriate for them, but certainly personally, and I think for most of us, I think it's fair to say that maybe that first run should be 4 or 5k. Few days after the race, maybe another 4 or 5k a few days after that. So ease back into it. Don't feel the urge to go out and smack out a 30-kilometre long run this weekend. It will probably hinder your recovery rather than help it. So just take it easy. On the flip side, the fact that you want to go out and run is probably a sign that your body's beginning to recover, and your natural willpower and your urge to run and get out there and enjoy the trails is coming back. But don't be in any major rush. There is plenty of time. So I hope your recovery is going to go really, really well. The next thing to talk about probably is how my race went, and well, to cut a long story short, I DNF'd at 132 kilometres. There were some positives to take out of the race. I had an absolute blast in the first half. I saw tons of people I know. There were lots of people who said, "Oh, it's Gareth, it's Westie Runner. Thank you so much for your videos." Thank you to you guys. It was great. I just really kept me going. Had a fantastic time. I had some good experiences and a good joke with a few other people as well. So that was just fantastic. I got some really quite bad blisters, which is disappointing because I'd worked with those shoes before, but these things happen. That's obviously not a positive, but on the other hand, I worked through those with a little bit of advice by text message from my coach, and it cost me maybe 25 minutes, maybe half an hour, but we kind of got on with it. And ultimately, I felt like I worked through that challenge really well. And that's what a lot of ultra marathoning is about, is working through those challenges. Now, on the other hand, there were some bad bits as well, and there are probably two things to talk about. The first of these is, even though I'd said I was going to run this mature, intelligent race, I went out too hard. And while it did feel really very comfortable indeed, looking back at it, I ran the first 42 to 44 kilometres, so from Okatina to the Village Green aid station. I ran that in, I think it was just under 5 hours, which is too fast. When I did the race in 2019, I ran the same distance in 7.5 hours to finish well under 24 hours. So the fact that I ran it in under 5, and it's the hardest section of the course probably, that was poor judgment. So I'm a bit disappointed with that. But there's a lesson learned there. Now the second thing, which I'm probably more disappointed about, is the fact that I dropped out at Rotokakahi aid station, Green Lake. And had you asked me before the race, I said, well, even if I'm having a really, really tough day, I'm going to finish no matter what, but I wasn't able to. Coming into the Tarawera aid station, there's a sort of extremely steep stairs. I pretty much had to walk down those backwards. My quads and calves were so blown. I fell off the side halfway down, and I had what I think I described in an Instagram post as a life-changing cramp. Incidentally, thank you, a huge thank you, in fact, to the 4-5 runners who stopped, checked I was okay, offered me sympathy, salt tablets, told me to harden up, whatever. It was great, guys. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciated it. And I was able to get up and make it to the aid station a kilometre or two down the way. After that, I had a chat with my coach at Tarawera, and I grounded out to Green Lake aid station, but ultimately there I dropped. And I think probably the hardest thing for it is I had 32, 33 kilometres to go. I had 18 hours to do those in. And under any normal circumstances, I would turn around and say, yes, I can absolutely walk without even breaking into a jog. I can absolutely walk that time in maybe 6 hours, which still would have brought me in on 24 hours time. But at that point, everything hurt too much. I could feel things getting worse as I went on, and I simply did not have the willpower to keep going. And that is probably the hardest thing for me to take coming out of this race. That was my first DNF. That's okay though. Nobody's died. It's not the end of the world. I just need to kind of internalize that, learn those lessons, and move on, and find something else that I'm going to enjoy as much, because I had a great time training, I had a great time racing, and sure, there were some challenges, but I think those challenges are why we do it. We don't do this because it's going to be easy. So I think looking forward, I've probably got either UTA in May, if I start to recover quickly enough, or I'll do Tupor Ultramarathon in October. Anyway, I hope you guys are recovering really, really well after having had a fantastic day out on the trails. If, like me, you experienced did nothing fatal, did not finish, DNF, that's okay. Learn from it, move on. Go find that next adventure that's going to excite you to get out there and train and have a wonderful time. I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one of you out on those trails. Hope you all recover really well, guys and gals.